Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's masterclass. Today, we will be addressing an important question: design your own and unique career path. You might be questioning your next steps. You might be wondering what your career is going to be like. You might even be thinking about reinventing your career. And today we are joined by Sanjay, who will tell us everything about how to craft the plan to make it happen. So hello, Sanjay, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. I just wanted to give you some practical information before we start the masterclass today. You might have a lot of questions for Sanjay. And you can, of course, ask them, not in the chat, please. You have a special tab called questions. So could you please ask your questions in that tab? The reason for that is that it's possible for you to like each other's question, because we might not have time for all of them, but we'll take all the ones that are the most liked. So please ask your questions in the questions tab. And just so you know, at the end of today's masterclass, there will be a poll for you to answer, made available just at the end, because we would love, of course, to hear what you think about today's masterclass. And I'll remind you of that at the end, of course. Before we jump into the masterclass itself, I have a few questions for you, Sanjay. Could we talk about your personal experience, how your path has taken you to where you are today? A bit about yourself, your academic path, your professional path.
Sure, absolutely. So I went to, I was educated in Hong Kong, high school, went to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, where I studied economics. I studied economics because that's what I enjoyed. That's not what I wanted to do, which I found out later. After finishing my undergrad in economics, I actually got a job at an investment bank as a junior economist. I went through multiple rounds of interviews, very lucky to get it because I wasn't the most spectacular student. However, at that time, this was I'm dating myself now, this was 1989, December. For those of you who like history, you probably know that's around the time where Eastern Europe was opening up. The Berlin Wall came down, and there was an amazing opportunity that I read about in terms of just the markets opening. So I decided I had two choices: take this job as an economist, or actually pack my bags and fly into Eastern Europe and figure out if there's an opportunity. And that's what I did. I threw myself in the deep, didn't know any of the languages, explored the opportunities and built a small business in 2.5 years. And after that, I went to business school. And then after that, I was a consultant for a very, very short time. I was with McKinsey & Company. And then I realized, I wanted to be an entrepreneur, pretty much. And so always looked at places that were growing in terms of industry and geography, in terms of opportunity. And so I went to Latin America, put myself down in Latin America from Argentina to Mexico. And then in 1999, e-commerce was taking off in Asia. I knew internet was going to change international trade. I had a passion for technology, always have, I still do. And I met Jack Ma in 1999 in his apartment while at a trade show. And then I joined Jack after multiple meetings as his number 3 guy in the core team. And then was there for a number of years. And now I'm a co-founder of 2 companies, and I've been an angel investor and a mentor. So that's it in maybe a minute. Maybe that's a little too much, but yeah, I'm not young.
Thanks a lot. So you've really traveled the world, then, you could say, all parts of it, more or less.
Yes.
Quite impressive. So thanks a lot for the introduction. If we now start really the first part of the masterclass, it's about how to plan your career. And when it comes to career, of course, you can have many questions, many concerns. So, well, the question is really, did you have a plan when you really started out your career once you had finished your study? Did you have a concrete plan to follow?
Yeah, so, first of all, when I graduated from undergrad in '89 and from business school in '94, times are very different than they are right now, right? Technology is taking everybody in a very different path. And so what my plan was and then may be very different from what students should think about right now. But at that time, there was a lot of pressure from peers, from universities to go to a certain track. You go away and you study a degree, and that's what you should do for the rest of your life, or that's the area you should go into. And that's what I planned to do, right? I went to University of Michigan, studied economics, and I was going to go into banking. But as I just mentioned, I decided against it, which I think was the best thing ever for me. I think one of the key strengths that we all should develop, especially now, is being agile. Being agile, understanding where opportunity is, understanding where growth is, and understanding to get the skills to be part of that industry. So that's one thing I'd share. The other thing is, I didn't do this much, but I think consciously, but I probably did it very self-consciously, is really understanding what drives me. What are my strengths? In business, people talk about product market fit, right? You make a product and you sell it into market. What's the right fit? I think the same thing applies for us as human beings. Who are we, right? And we evolve all the time. And what's the best market for our fit? And so I think the question really is, what drives you? What are your skills? What do you want to be? And that doesn't have to be what you want to be in 10 years. I think it's a question of where you see the opportunities are, and what gives you pleasure, what gives you energy, and then use that as a foundation to create a plan.
Thank you very much, because my next question is really about the best way to build a plan. I understand perfectly what you mean with the importance of agility, of course, but let's say that you have identified the drivers you just mentioned, your passions, what you really would like to do. You are quite sure, let's say you are quite sure of the path you would like to take. In that case, what would be, in your eyes, the best way to build a career plan based on those drivers you have identified?
Yeah. So for today, so I've got four sons, and they're 18 to 26, and I tell you what I can tell them all the time, right? Is this, first of all, A is understand yourself, right? Because and I think when you understand yourself, you should ask your peers, right, what they think of you, because sometimes none of us know what our real skills are. But if you ask a third party or a friend of yours saying, hey, listen, what do you think my skills are? You'll be surprised what you'd hear. Right? What do you think that really drives me? You'll be surprised. So I would really get a 360 view on yourself. That's number one. Number two, I would look at the various options that one has in the first 1 or 2 or 3 years of going to college, and there are multiple options. Correct? There's an option of going straight to work, and in that, I think having that fit is important. I think there's an option of volunteering, which is, I think, also a great opportunity, right? Because that's where you can learn yourself and learn the soft skills as well. There is 3 of and I recommend this as well, is traveling to those areas that are growing, right? Travel to those areas that are really, that have got a nice, 10-year future, 20-year future, and they could be China today. China's growing, India's growing, Vietnam's growing in Asia, right? I mean, there's certain Canada, the parts of Canada that are growing. I'd just get exposure to some of the activities, on the ground activities that are happening. Then I also would, in terms of building a plan, really, really understand technology, because technology is going to change. I mean, especially if you look at generative technology, so generative AI, it's going to change a lot of jobs out there, and it's going to create a lot of opportunities out there. And so once you embrace and understand the new technologies, that will sort of guide you in terms of what plan you should take. What you don't want to do is obviously go down a plan which is going to be automated in a year. And with ChatGPT, for example, there are industries that are going to be quite affected.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. We have a few questions in the chat. I don't know if I can see them, if you can all see them, so I'll just read them. Is there an age threshold as to when one should choose stability and focus on a particular function and thrive to become an expert? Or is there more to gain from roaming around and experimenting different things throughout one's career?
That's a great question. You know, I think the answer I'd give 20 years ago would be different from the answer I give right now. Right? I think there's a balance, right? I think when you start something, what you don't want to do is give up very quickly, because you may not give yourself time to become really good at it and start really enjoying it, right? And getting to more to deeper levels. So I'd give that time, that hard work, and dedication. But, right, if you realize that that's not the place for you, move. Right, because you do not want to spend your life going in from 8 to 8 p.m. working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, coming back saying, you know, I'm making really good money, but I'm not enjoying myself. That's negative energy, and you have one life. So I would always be conscious. I'd always be present and understand what really drives you. If what you're doing, you know, after being an expert doesn't give you energy, then move on, right? Okay. Ensure though that during the journey that you're always, you know, learning new skills, because this is a world for microaccreditation. This is a world where you want to always learn new skills, so you have the agility, the ability to look at different options, to pivot if you wish. So always give that option to pivot, but don't pivot unless you're really sure that energy is negative.
Thanks a lot for that answer. We have a second interesting question here. How would you advise someone planning to make a career shift at an advanced stage into somebody entirely new? How does one navigate such a case, primarily to deal with ageism in case one chooses the internship path, or what other suggestions can be taken?
You know, that's a good question, and I think it's a function of where you are in your path, right? And there are lots of people that I know that are in the path that are having a very difficult time making that shift, and that's because they're closer to my age, and you know, depending on the age you are, right? I think there's a world where if you understand the skills that you have and the learnings you have, you can always share them in the startup world, right? Because if you look at the startup world, you always have, you know, the young blood that are building startups, and they're always looking for mentors. So even if you want to shift, you don't have to have a complete wholesale shift from one job to another. You can be trying 2, 3, 4 different things at the same time, as long as they're a good match to your skill set. I think, you know, going into internships is a great way to explore, but you just need to be clear and careful exactly what you want to get out of the internship. You got to have very strong intent, right? Will this internship, will the network that I make, will the friendships that I make, will it give me an understanding of the industry, of the opportunity? Will it open the network so I can you know, progress quickly? Those are some of the questions that one needs to ask.
Great. Thank you. Going back to what you said a bit earlier on about being an expert, for example, we have a question from Stefanos. What's your opinion on the opposite, on generalists, how a generalist can survive in the modern world and form a career path when it seems that everybody wants experts?
You know, so the one other, you know, opportunity that people always have is becoming an entrepreneur, right? And typically, you know, if you look at entrepreneurialism, you need to be able to at least engage with various experts. But someone typically who is an expert in finance has a tough time, right? You know, going in and building a business, because they just understand business through a finance angle, which is not enough. So being a generalist is not all that bad. But I think being a generalist, you know, when you talk about experts, there are 2 levels of experts. One is very deep, right? And for me, right? I run, there's one business that I run that is a lot about ML. Am I an ML expert? No, I'm not. I've got ML experts working, but do I understand ML to a certain level? I do, right? So that as a generalist actually opens doors in many ways, because it opens your doors to new ideas, new strategies, new business opportunities that you can bring people together. So there is a lot of value to being a generalist, I think, if you want to take the road of being an entrepreneur.
Okay. Great, that's good to know. And I have one more question related to that. You could say I have a lot of questions from you all. That's great. I might actually save some of them for later, because I think we'll be getting back to some of the topics you're asking about. But since we are talking right now about experts and generalists, we have one question from Hannah Marie. How to look for job opportunities when there seems to be no specific job or organization one's interested in? If one is looking but not being really sure of where to go, what would be your advice?
So I'm a believer that you don't look at job opportunities by looking at job boards and seeing what companies have posted, right? I mean, by going down that road, typically you're going to be competing against 1,000 CVs, and the recruiter on the company side has got to look through 1,000 CVs, and right now the way that's done is extremely inefficient. What I would recommend is identify companies that you aspire to be with, companies that you respect, right? Companies that have got growth, companies that are doing great things, companies that have the same values that you do, right? That share the same culture. Once you understand those 3, 4, 5 companies, understand, if they got a division in your country, or if there's an opportunity for you to actually work there. Location is important. I'm assuming right now. I mean, there's obviously a world of work from home, but let's just put that aside. Once you can identify the 4 or 5 target companies, look at them, study them, understand the people in them, go to LinkedIn and say, hey, listen, this is who I am. This is what I understand of your business. I've actually spent hours and hours and hours and hours studying your business, and I love what you do for these reasons. I want an opportunity to work with you. On the flip side, I can guarantee you the people who read that get that message, and I wouldn't do it on LinkedIn, by the way. I would actually get the name, get the email, send them a note, write them a letter, whatever it may be. So at least it's not crowded. Because people get thousands of messages on LinkedIn, my guess is. They will appreciate the fact that you've taken time to study the business. They realize that you're really interested in the company, and that's what recruiters want. They want a right match, right? They want to hire people from a company standpoint is expensive. They want to hire the right person. What better thing to hire, right? It's much better to hire someone who's really invested in the research than someone who's just given a CV. So that's what I do.
Okay, well, great. Thank you very much for that answer. And I'll try to go back to my script here. I haven't forgotten your other questions. I promise I'll just come back to them later. If we talk about the building of a plan more concretely, one of my questions is about tools you could use to do that. And I was thinking about what you said earlier, traveling being of quite some importance to strategic places. Would that be a tool for you? Are there others that you think that one could use that could be useful when you try to build a career plan, when you know what you would like to do later?
Yeah, in terms of building the career plan, my view is the more you understand, the grounds up, the better it is, right? Because you'll know what resonates with you, right? Now, and once you do your internal assessment, right, there's an external assessment. That external assessment is a function of networking. And networking is actually used in a negative way. I mean, networking, the way I've heard it is, how do you use everybody else to try and progress? That's not what I mean by networking. What I mean by networking is generally learning from others, right? So what did you get out of this job? What did you get, why are you in Hong Kong, right? What are you learning from it, right? Can you teach me what you've learned? Really be genuinely curious. Do travel, right? And travel to places that are opening up, that there is opportunity. Go to, be part of associations that resonate with your interests. the understanding, you'll be surprised at the opportunity you'll see when you do this, because people recognize your how genuine you are. People recognize what interest you have, and they might say, God, you know what? Actually, there's an opportunity opening up in my business or my company. Would you be interested? So networking is I think probably one of the most important things to do in terms of opening up, the opportunities in front of you.
That's really great, because, well, my next question is, who can help me to build my career? How can I find a mentor? Would you say then that, okay, by networking, you will learn from others who will help you to see clear and build your plan yourself?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, getting mentors is really important. I think can really help. Typically, what I recommend is, go to your alumni association, reach out to them, and figure out those people that maybe have done well, that are in industries that you really enjoy, or you would want to be in, or even think about being in, and send them an email saying, hey, listen, I'm looking for a mentor, but don't say it in such a way whereby they feel, that it's a massive commitment, saying, can we start maybe with a 30-minute discussion? I'd love to get your views. You've done so well. I'm trying to answer some questions. Could you help me? 9 out of 10 people will say, sure. When I get calls, people want to help, sure, because I was there when I was young too, right? And we were all there, and we all want to help. So I would go to alumni. I would go to friends who are a little more senior, even friends who are not, but have already gone through the path. So you can learn from everybody, and there are mentors around you who want to mentor. You just don't know. You need to go out there and ask for it.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Perfectly clear. And talking about, learning from others, like you said, my next question is about any additional trainings. Since we're talking about learning, let's say you really have a clear idea, this is where I want to go. Is there something you recommend as an extra training to get, the skills to get there, so to speak? Anything you can think of?
Yeah, technology. I've been living in the technology world, pre iPhone, internet. I was very early on in the internet in China, and what's happening in the last 9 months to 12 months has really taken my mind by storm, right? Generative AI is taking this world by storm. Every 2-3 days, there's a bit of news about a new application that blows me away, right? Text to PowerPoint, for example, right? I mean, creating text to storybooks. There is so much out there that's going to affect nearly every industry. And I'm not talking about only AI. There's technology in robotics, there's technology in medicine, there's technology across in multiple different pillars of industry. And I would look at which one of those really resonate with you, right? And I would start taking classes, whether it's 2-week classes, there's 2-month classes, just to understand the basics. So when you are in a discussion with somebody a bit more senior, or you're in a discussion with your peers, you know what you're talking about. But not only that, once you read the materials and you listen to podcasts, you really have a sense of where that industry is going. Because only once you do can you visualize where it's going to be in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And only once you do that can you figure out, where do I want to position myself, right? So I can grow, right? I can grow with the industry.
Yeah.
If you don't know that basics, then you may be left behind, even though you may be interested in it. And there are a lot of classes out there that are free. You may not get the certification. It doesn't really matter, but get involved and take these classes. And there are new classes coming out all the time. So short to longer ones, but technology is going to be more so more so now than before. And much more later, it's going to be so intertwined in our daily life, right? Today, we all carry extended, our phones, extension of ourselves. Generative AI is going to be our personal assistants, right? So how do we use that to our advantage? We need to understand that.
Of course. No, that's something you can learn a lot from, of course. Let's say that you're a student who has just graduated, and I think that this is something you have also been asking questions about in the chat. When you graduate, you don't have a lot of working experience because you're just starting. What would your tips be concretely to really get your first job? How do you know your own worth, and how do you negotiate your salary, for example, for a first job?
Yeah, so my view on this is what's most important is figuring out what industry you want to be in. Once you figure out the 1, 2, 3 industries, just get on the board. Play the game, right? Get in the job board, get your hands dirty, start building network, because you're more likely to network in that industry when you're hired than when you're not hired. Once you're in, and you understand the value of delivering, and you understand your value to vis-a-vis your peers, and your seniors can see what you're delivering, that's when your salary and everything sort of comes to play, right? I wouldn't play that game now. There are some companies that are very, very clear in terms of what they pay, right? So you get a job with Goldman and McKinsey and BCG, and they're like, okay, you come in as an analyst, this is what your salary is going to be. Become an associate, this is what happens in 3 years, 5 years, and they have this whole, they give you the visibility. But many other companies, the smaller ones especially, don't do that. Correct? So in that situation, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Of course, you want to ensure that you're getting a fair salary and that data is out in the market, right? And also you can have the discussion with the employer, because if the employer is not having a discussion with you, and if he or she is actually trying to take you for a ride, that is a red flag in terms of, do you want to work with a company with those values?
Of course.
But assuming that discussion is transparent and is fair, and is perfectly fine to have it, get on the job board, and the rest will take care of itself.
Okay, great. Thanks. I've got a lot of questions. I won't take them all now, but I got 2 of them that's a bit related to this one, so I thought we could just stop for a moment. We've got one question from Nancy. Well, this being about your first job. How do you start your career in your 30s when you haven't had any experience in corporate and still in school? And this is an excellent question because I've actually been in that exact situation, Nancy. So I'd love to hear your answer on that.
Well, I think first of all, not having any experience, I would question that, right? Because what you come with all the experience in school, there's a lot there, right? There's just a lot of things you built. I mean, soft skills, teamwork, hard skills, engaging with professors. You've probably done activities in school, and that's all really, really important. When I was at Columbia Business School, I organized a first India trip from Columbia University, and to me that was a phenomenal experience that allowed me to understand my team building skills, meeting CEOs. And I tried when I got a job at McKinsey, I talked about that, right? And so that translated. So I wouldn't discount at all your knowledge that you have in school. Now, once you have that, ride on that knowledge, right? So you're sure going to be competing against people with some experience, but then it's a question of your soft skills come into play. How do you use that and say, hey, listen, it doesn't matter, right? Try me out because I do have these skills, and your intention and your drive and your hunger is really important for corporates, right? There are those, if I were to hire today and I had somebody really, really hungry with that much experience, but with the skills that I've learned, and somebody who's got the experience but not very hungry, I'm going after the hungry person any day.
Wonderful. Thank you. And about that, about the skills, we have another question from Andrea, who says, I feel like I have no amazing skills and a lot of people are better than me. And the sad point is that I really do not know what I like and what are my skills, or what am I good at? How can I understand that? How is it possible to identify your own soft skills if you have no experience, to make it short?
I'm just thinking back. When I was in California many years ago, I did a questionnaire, and the questionnaire was the person I was working with said, "Okay, can I interview some of your friends that can tell me more about you?" I said, "Sure." I mean, it's a waste of time, but sure. And she did that, and she sent a questionnaire, and one of the question was, what are Sanjay's soft skills? And what they came back with, and what she read to me, I was not a shock. I said, "Really? Me? No way, right?" And I guess what I'm getting at is that there are people who know you, your friends, they observe, they know what your skills are. And those you trust, you should ask them, right? And then sort of match out those soft skills vis-a-vis, the opportunities that really require the soft skills and do the overlap. But we all have strengths. There's not one person who doesn't have strengths. It's a question of identifying what those strengths are. So some people can do it on their own. Some people need a third party to come back and say. Some people need both. But we do have strengths.
Thanks. We just need someone to tell us what they are if we can't see them ourselves. Thanks a lot. Another question about, let's say, a career path that changes, which can happen. Let's say when you change jobs, it goes back a bit to what you said earlier. If you're not in the right place, then you should think about moving on. What would be your best advice to navigate career transitions, changes like that? And how do you present that in the best way to hiring managers? How do you value short experiences if you have been trying to, find yourself a bit? How do you present that in a best way to a company where you're applying, that the experience are short and varied?
Well, so there are multiple elements you covered over there, right? I think as a hiring manager, there will always be a red flag if the experience is very short and many, right? Because the signal they get there is that you're moving around a lot, and nobody wants to hire someone like that, so unless there's a really good story behind it. And still, right, they would expect you to sort of have some understanding. I mean, you can do it initially, but then over time, your tenure in the company should be a bit longer, and you should have a really good reason why you want to go. Maybe management's changed, maybe you got acquired. So having understanding, again, when you present, you need to understand yourself and why does it happen, and do it and present it in a very articulate way, so the hiring manager sees the logic, solid logic behind it. I think in terms of changing, there are two things right over here. There's one thing that's changing industry, and there's one thing that's changing your domain of expertise. So if I were in finance, I could be a CFO of a construction company today, and 2 years later, I can be a CFO of a hotel, right? Because you understand you got the financial skills, and that's okay, right? And I think that's a great way to sort of navigate, because the dynamics of a hotel industry could be a little different, right, from the dynamics of your previous industry, and those dynamics could appeal to you. So that's an easier change, and I see that happen quite a bit. And of course, certain disciplines are easier to change, like marketing, for example. So marketing, you can sort of move from one industry to another. If you, however, look at your domain expertise, that's a tougher one, right? Because if you're 35 years old to 40 years old and you've been in finance, and you realize, God, finance is not what I want to do, you want to go to marketing. Well, to pivot straight to marketing is a tough one.
I think we lost Sanjay. It might be a connection problem. No worries, he'll be right back. He'll just reconnect. I think he's joining us from Hong Kong, so the connection has a far way to go. I'll try to summarize a bit the questions that you have asked in the chat, in the questions tab, and we'll save them for the end. There you are, Sanjay.
Sorry, not sure what happened.
No worries, could be the connection. No worries. Glad to have you back.
Yeah. So, what was the question? Is there another question you asked while I got disconnected?
I think you have answered in a very complete way the question I asked about, you know, varied and short experiences, how to handle those, especially when you are applying for a job.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I mean,
thanks a lot.
I just think on that, you know, depending on the experience you have. I mean, if you are, you know, in your 30s, I think, and you want to sort of change, one thing is obviously you change by going out and learning a skill and going back to the industry, saying, okay, I wanted to be in marketing, I want to do this, but I went out and upskilled, and now I'm coming back in, and that's not bad. The other is you actually work in a smaller organization where you take a general approach. And you have exposure to different disciplines. And that's another way of doing it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your answer to that question. It's very important to students and, well, to all of us to build a career that feels meaningful, that makes sense, so to speak. What would be your advice as to that, as to the sense, the meaning of it all?
Listen, I think that is critical, right? I work very, very long hours. You know, I don't even know if it's a Saturday or Sunday. It's, you know, I sort of go, oh, really? It's a Sunday and people are off? What's going on over here? And the reason why that is because I really enjoy what I do. And I think once you find meaning in your work, it's not work anymore, right? It's really, it's pleasure, right? Because you're sort of spending your hours with people who feel the same way. You're spending your hours after socializing with people who feel the same way, you know. And you realize that you're sort of moving the needle a bit in whatever you want to do. So if it's an industry that's got to do with any of the, you know, 17 SDG goals, right? You know, hunger, water, climate change, you know, equal jobs. I mean, there's so many of these goals out there, and so many industries, from startups to mid-sized companies to larger companies, that care about these initiatives. Whatever resonates with you, and we all come from different backgrounds, and so some things will resonate with you more than others. Go after that, because that's going to give you the fuel, right, to, you know, to keep you going. Otherwise, your tank is going to dry up. And then it becomes really hard. So I think finding meaning and doing something meaningful, 100%.
Let's say you're looking for that meaning because you haven't found it yet. What do you think of taking a year off, either to travel or just take the time to figure out what would you like to do? What would be meaningful to you?
Yeah, I think taking a year off with an intent, with a plan, would be good, right? It's got to be with a plan, though. So if it's a year off and identifying, you know, 3 organizations that are doing things that are meaningful to you, go for it. Correct. Even if it's for 1 month each, right? If it's also, you know, traveling around alone to learn about yourself, go for it. If it's a question of, you know, doing a meditation course for 2 weeks, definitely, right? So learn about yourself, really, really important, right? And I can tell you, a lot of people that I know don't know themselves yet, right? And I'm still on that journey. Learning about myself. So the more you can learn about yourself and give yourself time, and use that 1 year to learn about yourself and explore your skills, explore what you like, make new friends. Completely. The world of work is long, right? It's many, many years. So rather plan, understand, plan, then execute.
Okay, great advice. Thank you. If we go back to what you said a bit earlier about, well, your own way of working and which day in the week it is and working hours and so forth, a question about work-life balance. When you build a career, what would be your best tips to maintain a work-life balance? The one that suits you, of course, the one that makes you happy.
God, that's a tough one for me to answer. So.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I mean, so you know, it depends where you are in your career, right, and your age as well. When I can tell you about my experience, right? So when I was married, I did nothing but work, and it was after, well, before marriage, after business school, or even after undergrad, right? I would work all the time, just because I enjoyed it, right? Again, I did something I enjoyed, and so why would I do anything else? Of course, I would make sure I stayed fit. I made sure that I slept well. I did all those things important for health, but I would spend most of my time doing what I loved. But then as you sort of grow and you have other commitments, the question really is about understanding those commitments and having agreements, right? Whether it's with your partner, how many hours you're going to work. You're going to do a startup. That's going to take 120 hours a week. Is that okay with you? Well, if it's not, then let's understand it now before you start something up. So I think it's really a question of knowing what you're getting into and planning for that, as opposed for it to come for you as a surprise, right? And so it's always good to be in control. So if you want to go work really long hours and that's your decision, perfectly fine. What you don't want to do is get in a situation whereby you didn't sign up for working long hours and you are doing it, because that's when you're going to be, unhappy and not well.
Of course. Thank you very much. If there is one thing that you think is important to remember when you start your career, what would that thing be, if there is only one?
When you're starting a career, don't worry. Listen, put your best foot out. Don't worry about failure, because it's better to fail when you're younger, because you'll bounce back a lot faster than taking risk at my age, for example, right, when it's harder to sort of bounce back. So when you're young, go out and learn, make new contacts. If there's an opportunity that you think is great, don't look for the perfect opportunity. Don't, right? Perfection is not what you're looking for. Go in and do it and learn, and you'll get a lot out of that. You'll be able to pivot and navigate better. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. And if ever you had the possibility to talk to your younger self, what would you say to yourself regarding your career?
Oh God, so that's a really, really good question. There were times where I said to myself, should I have taken this step? Right? Because there are times, even though I've enjoyed it, it's been a tough journey to get where I am. Right? It's been a lot of hard work, and so could there be an easier path? And I don't think so. So if I had to look back at my younger self, I think I'd have done the exactly same thing as I did right now, as I've done so far, because all my experiences have led me to where I am today. Right, my experiences in going to Eastern Europe, getting involved in international trade, just getting into McKinsey, and understanding global trade led me to working with Jack as his number 3 guy in his core team, right, 99. Right, without those experiences, I wouldn't have got that. Without working with Jack, I wouldn't have the training or the ability or the courage to dream big the way he has and he does, right? So I'm actually, I don't think I would change anything.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. Thank you for that answer. I'm looking at the questions now that you have asked in the chat. We have another one from Nancy. How do you practically build confidence to apply to jobs you are not 100% qualified for? In essence, how do you present yourself for companies to take a chance on you for your first job experience?
Well, first of all, I'd remove the 100% qualification, right? Because nobody's 100% qualified, right? I mean, sure, some people may be qualified in the hard skills, but we don't know if they're qualified in soft skills, right? So I would personally remove that 100% qualification requirement, and then if you really want to go get the job, as I mentioned before, is do your due diligence. The most important things to do in getting a job is not asking the questions that they ask you. Well, you need to ask them very probing questions, because remember, you working with them is your life as well, and so you want to find, right? You want to find the right company for you, and so that's your discovery in those interviews, right? and you can be very open, saying, hey, listen, maybe I'm not qualified for this job, but I think I am. But I want to ask you a question because I want to make sure that when I'm here 101%, not 95%. Do you mind if I ask you 5-6 questions? That, those 5-6 questions that are very precise to the organization will completely resonate with those people, because that's exactly what they want. They want the right person company fit.
It will make the difference. Absolutely. We've got a question from Maylise. We've been talking a lot about drivers today and what motivates you. And she asks, how do you choose a career when you don't have one passion or driver, but a lot of different interests?
I would look at interests as concentric circles, right? Mm-hmm. And figure out, do any of them overlap? And then if those overlap, you go into look at companies or industries where it's overlapping. I'm just trying to think of an example, right? For example, if it's sports, correct, and in technology, right? And say you like baseball, right? Well, what do? Right now, is there technology whereby you can put in a baseball bat to really understand your batting speed, and can you do something with those stats? So look at the different industries, see the overlap, and figure out, is anything there? And in case there's no overlapping thing, then I would really force rank them and then try something out, whether it's on a volunteer basis, right? And speak to others that are in that industry and really try and peel the onions and, hey, listen, what is it like to work in your industry? What do you do every day? What are the challenges? What do you learn? What are the people like, right? And having those basic interviews over cocktails, over networking sessions, you will learn a lot. And you'll say, well, you know what? Actually, this industry resonates with me more because the people I've met, they're more like this personality. So again, it's a lot of questions and answers, a lot of networking, engaging with people, learning about yourself, and learning about the industries that you want to be in, or the interests you want to work with.
Great, thank you. We have one question from Kaisa, who says, most of your suggestions, be traveling or volunteering or taking courses, require both time and money. What are some alternatives for people who don't have the time or money to spare for those things?
Yeah, so I'm just thinking about the scenario, right, where you need to work for money, and then what time do you have left? Because I think volunteering, you can do it locally, but the thing about volunteering is they don't pay you. So that's the question. And what I it's a tough situation to be in. What I would recommend doing is, if you can, obviously do the job that you have right now that gives you the earnings, but it still leaves you time after work, if you have the energy, and the weekends, and it doesn't have to be both Saturdays and Sundays, to volunteer, to actually get your hands dirty, or to meet other people in various other industries. It's time management, right? And I'm not saying that I say that with full respect, right? Because I'm sure everybody is really good at time management on the call, but it's really, how do you prioritize getting out of what you were, the corner you're in, into something else? You need to find that time. If you don't find that time, then you'll always stay there. So whether it's an hour a day, whether it's 4 hours a week, carve that out intentionally and use that really, really wisely.
Great, thank you. We also have a question from Taz. If you have any tips for more mature persons who have responsibilities that want to change career path or change focus in the industry they are in, what is the best way to sell life experience and skill sets to companies?
I'm just going to, obviously every company is different. Right, and every company has their own philosophy and hiring policies. But one thing that's intrigued me is that some of the larger companies actually work with tech ecosystems. Because I think a lot of large companies are always wondering, where how is technology gonna hurt my business, right? And larger companies typically are not agile enough to go invest in their own small startups, so they actually are, they're on tech hubs, for example, where they're present to see what technologies are out there, what startups are doing. And so by working from the ground up, that level, you can sometimes engage with large organizations, especially when you have experience. So when you have experience, the folks that are in the startup, sometimes they're lacking experience, and sometimes you can actually barter your experience for some equity, or even initially saying, you know what, I'm happy to help if you got development experience. So I would try. There's always an angle to get in. And sometimes it's just through, hey, listen, you want to have a chat over tea, over coffee, and they realize, Jesus, you're a domain expert. You're 30 odd years old. You've got more knowledge, and I'd love to get your help. How do I do it? Because I don't have much money in a startup. No problem, right? You figure out, maybe one startup can pay you a bit, another startup can pay you equity, but now you are in a network, and in that network, typically there are large organizations that will see you and see you operate. So that may be a way of navigating back into a different organization if you want to.
Thanks a lot for that. And we have a question from Merab about a conflict between emotion and logics, you could say. He says, I think that I get interested into careers based on their title, not their day-to-day tasks. That's why I chose computer science. And now when I want to change, I'm worried to choose another path emotionally, not logically. How to choose my career based on reality? That's a tough one.
Well, never choose a job or a career based on a title, right? Because titles are titles. There's nothing. You have to peel the onion and understand what's behind the title all the time, right? But not even that. You gotta peel back the onion and understand who's around the title, right? Who's around the job, and that again, it goes back to thorough due diligence, right? I think for this particular individual that's got a computer science degree, it's interesting, right? I've heard comments about where coding is going to go, but understanding computer science could be an advantage for you in this situation, because that can apply today to multiple industries, not from a purely computer science standpoint, but purely from, listen, hey, every organization today needs a strategy when it comes to technology. Every organization, right? And in that strategy, creation, having a degree, a STEM degree, could be of help. You don't have to have one, but it helps to have one, right? In this situation, if you've got a computer science degree, by positioning that as a massive advantage, could open a lot of opportunity for you. So I would peel the onion, not look at titles, talk to people, and celebrate the fact that computer science could be of help.
Great, thank you. I see we still have a lot of questions, and we don't have a lot of time left. So I'll just try to find one or two that are a bit different from which we have already talked about. We have one from Daniela. What would you say is more valuable for employers, 2 years of experience or a master's degree? And ending a bachelor's degree, would you advise someone to pursue a master or to ingress the market and start a job?
It's a function of multiple things. It's a function of what the master's is, right? It's a function of what the job market looks like. I can tell you from my experience, I got an MBA, and MBAs are expensive today, as they were a number of years ago, but I would still recommend, going for an MBA. And the reason is, right, my experience was I made some very, very strong, friends from my business schools that are like my brothers and sisters, right? And we've stuck together and we've helped each other out, and it's opened a lot of doors, right, in terms of helping me build my businesses today. It's helped me out on a personal basis. I've had skills, right, that I've gone into companies and they said, okay, you got this great degree, you got the skills, and they have a track for MBAs. That's just for MBAs. I don't know what it's like for masters, and whether it's a STEM degree, but I'd like to think that they would be looked at with value. Now, the question was whether it's a master's versus a job right outside undergrad, after undergrad. I would actually work right after undergrad. I wouldn't go straight for a master's, and the reason is because in the 2 years that you work after undergrad, or 3 years, there's a maturity level. You sort of get to know yourself better. You get to understand the industries. You get to understand what you want or what you don't want, right? I mean, what you like and what you don't like are two very important things, and that could help you figure out, well, hey, do I want to do a master's still because it's an investment and you want to get a return investment, and if so, what masters, right? I mean, maybe in 3 years you actually thought you want to do a master's in I don't know, computer science. You go, no, I don't want to do a master's in computer science. I'd rather do a master's in statistics or finance. I'm just giving out. I'm not saying either is good or bad, but it gives you time to understand yourself and learn about what you want to do. So, and it's an investment. So you want to be careful about when you do your secondary degree.
Thank you very much for that advice. And I think we'll just take one absolutely last question for you. If you have one last piece of advice, really the last information from you that we would all need to remember from today's masterclass, in that case, what would it be? The most important point you want to share today?
Listen, I think the world of work is interesting. It's changing very quickly. But we are super resilient, right? And I think it's there's always opportunity around us everywhere. I would always say, don't be afraid to fail and to try new things. Don't, right? Because you'll be surprised, right? Go to markets, go to places where the tide's coming up, because the tide rises all boats, right? So markets that are expanding, industries that are growing, the combination of both, right? Because if you're in a combination of both, you'll grow as well, right? There's opportunity for you as well. So be selective on where you want to go. Learn from your peers, right? I mean, network from a genuine level, right? Really want to make friends, because it's amazing what you learn. It's amazing what people give. People are very giving. People love to share, right? And the last thing is, be a giver as well. Share, right? Share what you have. Share what you know. Help people, because I tell you, it comes back in tenfold. So be hopeful. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of news out there that's scary, that's concerning, but there's also massive opportunity that people don't talk about, which you can probably identify.
I'll keep that in mind. Thank you. And last but not least, would you like maybe to say a few words about your own 2 companies before we end today the masterclass?
Sure, if you want. So there's one company that I co-founded. It's called Kaleido, Kalido, and it's about democratizing opportunity, right? And I think a lot of you will sort of resonate with this. The one challenge that we all have, globally, is you've got an idea, you got a skill. Who do you talk to? Who do you match with, right? Whether it's in an organization, whether it's within a network, your alumni network. How do you engage with the right people at the right time, at the right location? And so we built a matching technology just for that. And we're deployed in an organization. So one organization, one of the largest in the world, they're using it with one business unit with 60,000 people, where people understand the skills and matching with the skills with projects. It's just a vibrant marketplace, right? So that's what we do. The idea is to become the GPS for opportunity, right? Because most people today still, as we talk about today, is like saying, where do I go? What's my next opportunity? How do I plan for it? And if you think about a car, you get into a car, you go into Google, you know how to go to point A to point B, and you can actually plan the optimal stop. Well, now, if you say, if I had to ask you, well, what do you want to be in 5 years? You go, well, actually, I want to be a data scientist. Well, how do you get there? And that's what Kaleido hopefully will do for individuals. So that's one business, and we're located in India and the UK. The other business is very different. We actually got into I co-founded a company in 2007, which is the smart appliance product. So it's we manufacture different design and manufacture evaporative air coolers, dehumidifiers, portable air conditioners. That's for global warming. It's IoT enabled, Internet of Things. We work with the Honeywell brand globally. So any product you see that's a dehumidifier around the world, that's a dehumidifier under Honeywell, that comes from my business. So two very different businesses, and I'm also an investor in a lot of startups. So yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Big, but
thanks a lot for sharing. Yeah, I can imagine. Thanks for sharing that. And a huge thanks, Sanjay, for being with us today and for sharing all this advice. I'm sure it will be very helpful and useful to all the students who are here today. So thank you really for joining us from Hong Kong, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Wow.
That's right.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for being with us, really, and giving all this advice. And thanks to all the students who joined as well. Just a few small things before we end. Don't forget to fill in the poll. It will be in the extra tab next to questions and chat, since we would really like to have your feedback on the masterclass today. And just so you know, if you're interested in more content such as this one, you can, of course, check out our YouTube channel. We have a lot of Meet the Experts in there. You can also find a lot of similar content in your career center, of course, on our website, social media, Instagram, TikTok, etc. So don't hesitate to go there and see if you can find something that you would find useful to you, of course. And we lost Sanjay again, and we got him back. Thank you for joining again. Yeah, well, connection, you never know.
Well, listen, thank you very much. I just want to give the very best to all the students on this call. I've been there and have, there's a lot going on. All the best of luck. And I'm sorry I couldn't answer all the questions. But
thanks a lot for your answers. Brilliant. Right. Thank you. Yeah, really. I think we were able to take quite many of your questions into account, and it was great to have your perspective, your personal perspective on these questions from the students. So I think we all learned a lot from your answers. Really, thank you for that.
Pleasure is
mine. Well, good luck to all the students, of course, that were here today. Don't forget to register for our next masterclass. It's on May 17th. It's about entrepreneurship, and you can register now already if you wish. So thanks again, Sanjay, and
pleasure is mine. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. See you soon.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.